How many Chicago Bulls players has a realistic chance of competing for a award at the end of the season? We'll talk a little bit about that. Plus, I'm going to give my thoughts on Kendrick Perkins' reaction to an anonymous source within the Chicago Bulls. We're going to get into all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. So Kendrick Perkins, much like, we talked about the article that got released by Jamie Collar at ESPN, in which he quoted an anonymous Bulls source and basically had some harsh words thrown towards Zach LaVine. And Kendrick Perkins reacted to that, where he said this.
The Bulls have made no secret that they have attempted to trade LaVine, who is by far the highest paid player on the roster with his 3 years and $138 million left on his contract. Perk, which is more likely to happen, do you think? The Bulls trade or make it work with LaVine?
Well, who is this source? That's the first question I have to ask, because they're out of line, right? Did the source look at themselves in the mirror? Are they holding the Bulls organization accountable? Passing the blame all on Zach LaVine what has the Bulls front office done lately, right? Did they win in free agency? No. Did they win with draft picks? No. Billy Donovan got a contract extension. What has he done? Zach LaVine in a Bull uniform has been a two-time All-Star, Olympic gold medalist. At the end of the day, and he's been playing on a broken foot at times, on a injured knee. And I'm like, well, damn, no accountability for the front office and the organization, and you go put all this blame on Zach LaVine. I just want to know who that source is. Don't hide. I want you to, if you're going to say something, put your name behind it.
And let me be clear. No, I don't very often agree with Kendrick Perkins at all. I think Kendrick Perkins is somebody who now is at a point of talking for a living, doesn't usually articulate his thoughts very well. He has some wild takes at times. But this is one of the times where I don't disagree really with anything that Kendrick Perkins said. Matter of fact, I love the fact that he questioned who the anonymous Bull source is and who that guy is, rather than just throwing it just on the front office, right? And, a lot of the quotes that you've been seeing taken from the Kendrick Perkins comments were just saying, well, what has the front office has done, without putting that qualifying thing at the beginning of it of, I want to know who this anonymous source is, because who is this guy to blame everything on Zach LaVine when you have to also look at what the front office has done? And that is something that we've said in my coverage this offseason of this Zach LaVine since. I've talked about it. You got some Bulls fans to say, how can you blame Zach LaVine at all? You have some Bulls fans to say, no, it wasn't the front office. It is a combination of both. Zach LaVine, yes, has been a multiple-time All-Star. Yes, he did go out and win a gold medal. But let's be clear here. Zach LaVine has not played at the level consistently and stepped up in the big times that a top player should do, right? When you play a player, the highest contract in your franchise's history, you are expecting them to step up. Zach LaVine is much so said that after his deal, him saying, this deal doesn't make me complacent. It makes me want to give more and up my game more. And we just haven't seen that. Now, that does not take away from this team around Zach LaVine either. That this front office, you guys know, we got a voicemail a couple of weeks ago where somebody was like, well, you can't blame the front office because they tried to make moves. It just didn't work. Either players got injured or they didn't give what the front office thought they were going to give. No, that still falls on the front office. The front office is the chef that's cooking this up. And regardless if you thought your moves were going to work out or not, the fact of the matter is they didn't. The Bulls did not make a move that significantly upped their ceiling since they initially put the team that we had together and bringing in Lonzo and Vooch and DeMar. And every move that they made from then, there was some that helped. Andre Drummond was a move made after that, and he definitely helped the Chicago Bulls, but it didn't really change the Bulls' ceiling. Now, that's not just on Andre Drummond. That's on the coaching staff. That's on the front office. It's on a lot of these things. And I love the fact as well that Kendrick Perkins mentioned, well, Billy Donovan got an extension, but what is he showing you as a coach, right? You can't just blame it on the fact that you paid Zach LaVine as the number one player. You also paid a coach that has not really developed many players meaningfully. Yes, Kobe and Ayo have developed while they've been on this team. You cannot deny that. Alex Caruso also turned into a much more consistent three-point shooter. But when you really look at how these guys put in work in the offseason, you also got to ask yourself how much of that just comes to their natural dog mentality, right? throughout this, regardless of how you see Patrick Williams, the Bulls did not put Patrick Williams in a place to try to force growth and development from him. Now, you could also look at that and say, as the player, he didn't step up and demand that role either, or play in a way that demanded that he be a larger part of the offense. Two things can be true. And so ultimately where this stands, and I know not every Bulls fan agrees with this, the situation that the Bulls find themselves in are a combination of a few things. It's not just the front office. It's not just Zach LaVine. It's not just Billy Donovan. There's a Venn diagram, much like I talk about the Venn diagram that overlaps why Zach LaVine's trade value is where it is. There's a Venn diagram in this that is why the Bulls currently sit where they are right now. And that is a series of bad decisions or lack of movement or not understanding when and where to move off assets. It's also players' inability to stay healthy, things like that. But also, like there has been disappointment on this team. There just is. Patrick Williams, per a 4th overall pick, has been disappointing per that. He still turned himself into a solid player. And I talked about that over on Locked On Bulls with Pat a couple of episodes ago, right? People herald other players that have the exact same stat line as Patrick Williams, but the difference is those players just play with a little bit more right? They're a little bit more, they don't seem as ho-hum as what Patrick Williams gives, but their numbers are basically the exact same, showing that Patrick Williams can stay around on the NBA court. It's just that, once Patrick Williams unlocks something, if Patrick Williams ever gets to that place where playing with a little bit more edge, things would drastically change about the way Patrick Williams is viewed, right? So it's a lot of things going into this. And as somebody who covers the Bulls daily, for over 1,000 straight days here of covering the Chicago Bulls, right? Like, as we go through that and you watch that and learn from it and stuff like that, like, it's a lot that goes on. So the Bulls going in a new direction, I enjoy, right? But, that anonymous source that was like, oh, Zach's not a winner. He's never won. What is that? Like, all that type of things and quotes from it. Like, I get it, what you're saying in that, and I get where that was probably rooted in. But that anonymous source, honestly, just at some point just got to shut up as well. Everybody just has to shut up and do what they need to do. And that's something that I hope as we get closer to training camp, the preseason schedule was released, is everybody just shut the hell up and do your damn job, right? That's what it comes down to. That goes to Zach LaVine, do your job. That comes to the players. That comes to the coach. It comes to the front office. Everybody just got to do their damn job. It is not a place for a bunch, like, don't get me wrong, the feelings, the emotion we want to see on the basketball court, all that, but at some point, you just got to get it done. And the fact of the matter is, regardless of it, the Bulls have not gotten it done. And if you are somebody who looks at it and says, no, I'm just blaming the front office, I'm just blaming Zach LaVine, I'm just blaming Billy Donovan, or the god-awful, I'm just blaming ownership. Listen, it's stupidity at this point to just blame one aspect of that, because I can break down why it's not any one of those aspects problem. And even with the Reinsdorf people, oh, well, it's Jerry. No, it's not just Jerry Reinsdorf. Look at the missed opportunities that Arturas Karnisovas has made as a president of basketball. Like, Jerry's not sitting there telling AK who to draft. He's not telling which contracts to give up. He's telling them, hey, do not go into the luxury tax. Now, reportedly last year he did step in the Zach LaVine thing and basically was like, hey, we're not going to just take anything back for Zach LaVine. And, that's his right also as an owner to do. But Jerry Reinsdorf isn't the villain. He's a villain. Let me be clear here. He is the villain. But he's not the mastermind that some people make it seem out to be, where he's sitting there in the background in the shadow area of Arturas Karnisovas' office. Like, no, we're not doing that. No, we're not doing that. That's not what Jerry Reinsdorf does. It's just not what he does. Now, he does have his things, and he probably inserts himself in some areas where he should sit the fuck down as well. But this thing, if you have a front office that drafts well over time, and that's one of the biggest things, is you have to make the right decisions over time. And for a team that has never really been a big free agent destination, for a team that isn't going to be like that type of thing where we haven't gotten to the point of a star wanting to come here because of the base that we've built. Like, you have to draft well over time and develop those young assets. And that's why I'm glad that it seems like that's the route that the Bulls are going now. But you guys, as always, can let me know what you guys think down below. But let's get into the next topic for today. And this one comes from a Pimp It Ain't Easy article that I deal spurned from. And then I kind of added my own things to it, right? So they had which Bulls players could be in contention for awards next season. So they had a couple of players down. It was Josh Giddey, Ayo Dosunmu, and Miles Busilis. I'm guessing you could probably guess the roles. So the first one is Most Improved Player. Could Josh Giddey realistically win a Most Improved Player of the Year award next season? And I'm going to say Yes, I actually think there are 3 players on the Chicago Bulls that could contend for a Most Improved Player of the Year award, but Josh Giddey is absolutely one of those. When you look around this, to make no mistake, narratives play a part into everything. Every postseason award, no matter which, when you have writers and pundits and things vote in on it, narrative is always going to play a part in it. And Most Improved Player of the Year, considering how Josh Giddey's season ended, if Josh Giddey comes and starts for the Chicago Bulls team, a more young, athletic team that kind of fits his profile and his skill set a little bit better, you can absolutely see Josh Giddey being in contention for that award. I would say this, after looking at Josh Giddey last season, 12 points per game, 6.4 rebounds, 4.8 assists on 47% shooting from the field and 33% shooting from three-point range, Josh Giddey also had to play a role in that team. At times, he was turned into a spot-up shooter, which, talked about yesterday, he actually hit his wide-open threes pretty well. But Josh Giddey is going to be given the keys to this offense. And while I've seen people still saying things like, oh, well, Josh Giddey should come off the bench, I would assume we could start. You don't trade for a player, trade your best asset, and then have that player that has a contract that you have to make a decision on their contract at the end of the season. Josh Giddey will be the starting point guard. And so because of that, he is going to be given those keys. And if he can get more back in line with what he did in 2022-23 when he kind of had the keys, that's 16 points per game, almost 8 rebounds per game, over 6 assists per game, and almost a steal per game as well. If you add in his improved three-point shooting to that as well, and how he likes to draw contact, riding off this international play with FIBA and in the Olympics, Josh Giddey could have a platform that's built, it's an election year, could have a platform that helps propel him into being in that conversation for Most Improved Player of the Year. I think that he also has the skill set to do it. Like, I love that people are starting to realize that Josh Giddey, I love Bulls fans. You guys know, Bulls fans, sometimes at some point, we just got to shut up. For all of us, I have to do it. I was somebody who was talking about Javon Carter last year, right? But Josh Giddey is a player that is the 7th youngest player right now playing over in the Olympics. And then when you pair into that, he's amongst those players, he is that are young there. I think it's like 23 players or whatever. He's the second leading scorer in that, only second to Victor Wembanyama. And he's also leading an Australian team that has vets on there, and they're getting their butts kicked right now. But they are a team that, an Australian team that has vets on it. Josh Giddey could come into here, and he's going to play a similar role to DeMar DeRozan, but the difference is that he's way better of a playmaker than just a passer, and on top of that, he's still an aggressive player with getting to the mid-range. His float games is really good. He doesn't score in the mid-range or get to the free throw in the same way that DeMar DeRozan does. Matter of fact, he doesn't get to the free throw line nearly at all for how much he drives to the lane, only averaging 2 free throws per game for his career. He needs to improve that. But he is somebody who does have tremendous upside, and Josh Giddey, people got to realize he's one of the promising young players in this NBA. When you look at it, there were 23 players in the first round that were that they're going into their rookie seasons that are older than Josh Giddey. Older than Josh Giddey. I'm sorry, there are 23 players in the first and second round. Let me get my quote correctly. 8 of those players were chosen in the first round of this draft, and Josh Giddey already has a platform of being better than them. That just is what it is. Josh Giddey has an opportunity to win Most Improved Player of the Year. The next player that I do think has a legitimate shot at this, and this was not in the Pippen Ain't Easy article, is Kobe White. And I don't want to overlook that. Kobe White missed out on Most Improved Player of the Year last year. And I think that because of that, he's going to already kind of have that notice. Now, we've seen a player, the precedence has been set via what Tyrese Maxey did last year. When you look at Maxey already having an extremely good season the year prior, but still was able to win Most Improved Player of the Year this year. When you look at Kobe, moving off ball, he's going to be able to do more of the natural scoring things. He's still going to have some on-ball opportunities as well. Like, make no mistake about it. And while the numbers may not rise as much what they did from 2021-22 that they did in 2022-23, 2022-23 to 2023-24 for Kobe White and the rise he had there, like I said, the precedence was set. When you look at Tyrese Maxey, he upped his scoring by 5 points per game, but a lot of that was done with Joel Embiid sitting for a lot of that. So I do think that Kobe White still has a chance. And when you look at him, it comes down to what happens with Zach LaVine does play a part into that role as well. But Kobe White's 19 points per game. You could very well see him averaging over 20 points per game this season and maybe even being a more refined scorer. If Kobe White refines some of the things that's going on with his game, already a solid rebounder at over 4 rebounds per game. Talked about that yesterday. He's one of the top 15 guards in the league as far as rebounding. 5.1 assists per game. That may go down with Josh Giddey. We'll see what happens there. If he can maintain efficiency or even make it more efficient, he absolutely has a chance to get into that conversation for most improved player of the year. Now, the next one that was in this Pimpin' Ain't Easy article was Ayo Dosunmu. And this is something I haven't really thought about. And Ayo actually has a chance, I think, for 2 awards. Now, most improved player doesn't really come down to how your team wins plays a part into that, but it doesn't always come down to that. When you look at it, 12 points per game, 2.8 rebounds, 3.2 assists, over 50% shooting from the field, and 40% shooting from three-point range for Ayo Dosunmu last year. And then those numbers were even better as a starter. Now, I know he's not going to be starting this year, but he is going to be playing starter-level minutes. When you look at his averages last year, overall he averaged 29 minutes per game, right? So that's what he averaged last season, and that's a nice bearer of where he can probably be this season. As a starter, he averaged 36 minutes per game. Now, he's not going to be playing that many minutes either, so it's going to be somewhere between that with him being that first guard off the bench for the Chicago Bulls. He's going to be having some point guard duties at times. He's going to be playing the 2 guard at times, right? A lot of those things are going to be happening for Ayo Dosunmu, but I think that Ayo has a chance at that Most Improved Player of the Year award because the defense as well. The defense, and the Bulls are really going to have to rely on his defense very heavily in that first and second unit, and because of that, that gives him a little bit extra edge over just the scoring aspect of it. But I also think that if the Bulls do win, which some people think that they will, I don't necessarily, you guys know, I think between 30 and 35 wins is where the Bulls are going to sit this year. But if the Bulls do win at a higher rate, a level, and Ayo Dosunmu could have an opportunity at the 6th man of the year. Now, I think that does come down to when your team has to be winning for that, so that may keep Ayo out of that contention for that award. He may get some votes there. But look at Ayo Dosunmu and his growth this season in being in, yes, moving to the bench, but still being in a role where he's going to have an extremely important role for the Chicago Bulls team. And that could even maximize if the Bulls do find a trade partner for Zach LaVine at any point this season. That's going to put him in even a higher role on the Chicago Bulls team. So Ayo Dosunmu is probably going to play 3 positions for this Bulls team. He's going to play some 1, some 2, and some 3. He played a lot of 3 last year as well. And so because of that and his versatility defending-wise on top of that as well, that could get Ayo Dosunmu in the area of being in some of these postseason award talks. Again, keep in mind, too, with this, I'm in no way saying that all these players are going to win these awards, be the front runner to win these awards. I'm more so talking about the contention aspect. They can be in the conversation for those awards. When you look at Ayo Dosunmu's minute splits last year, he played 21% of his minutes at the point guard position, 75% of his minutes came at the 2, and then 6% of his minutes came at the shooting guard. I think that because of the point guard depth now, you could see that that number in the small forward range rise up for him. And at that point, he's going to be guarding some of the premier wings in the league, playing the 2 and the 3. And if that's the case, look out for that. Now, how successful he is in that's something that will remain to be seen. I think Ayo Dosunmu was a damn good defender. And he's stepping into that Alex Caruso role. Is he the disruptor that Alex Caruso was? No, he doesn't really get the deflections that Alex Caruso did. But as an on-ball defender in that aspect of things, he absolutely can be ready to absorb that role and take on a bigger role in that aspect for the Bulls. So look out for that. Ayo Dosunmu is a player that I do think can be in some contention for end of the year type things for him. And then we got to get into the last one. Pimpin' Ain't Easy had Modest Bucilis mocked as somebody who could get into the conversation for Rookie of the Year. Now, I had a video on that of what would need to happen for Modest to get into that conversation. And ultimately, I think it comes down to how many minutes does he play? What role does he have? And how does Billy Donovan kind of maximize on the skill set that he has? And that's something to remain to be seen. Zach Giddey right now is the favorite by DraftKings to win Rookie of the Year, which, you know how I feel about that. I've told you guys before. If Zach Giddey wins Rookie of the Year, Korn is going to be annoying all offseason. Shout out to my brother Korn. But with that said, Modest Bucilis does have a chance, but his path to that isn't as clear. Now, he's in the second tier of the odds, right along with Stephen Castle and Dalton Connect as well, who have right around the same odds as Modest Bucilis as far as winning the Rookie of the Year. Now, I do think that for Modest to do that, even if it's a chance for him to do it coming off the bench, right? It depends on the minutes that he plays, but it's how well does he do the things that he excels at now. You know, the three-point shooting, that's not something that we necessarily know how it's going to work out for him yet. I think it may be a little rough go for him his rookie year, right? The defense could be a little bit rough for him defensively. But with what Modest does, the thing that could get him into this conversation is that the things that he does well are all things that are highlight reel things and opportunities. You look at his rebounding. You look at the block shots. You look at his creation getting into the fast break, how as a fast break ball handler, he is actually pretty damn creative. Then on top of that, how he likes to finish around the rim, how he likes to get to the rim, how he likes to finish through contact, how he likes to get physical, and he welcomes that. Then on top of it, like I said, narratives play a part into every postseason award. Don't let anybody make you think different. The fact that Bucelis is a shit talker definitely plays a part into that conversation as well. So we'll see. Bucelis, I think, can have a similar role to what like a Ben Mathurin had for the Indiana Pacers his rookie year, where he was coming off the bench the majority of that rookie year. He started some, but came off the bench, and people knew who Benedict Mathurin was, right? They knew and understood what he came and brought to that team. I think Manas Bucelis is in a similar scenario and situation as well, where people know what he can bring to this team. The question is how much is Billy Donovan going to unleash him in his minutes played, and how many minutes will he play? I'm not worried about Manas playing. I know some Bulls fans have this huge concern on if Billy Donovan is going to play him. I think he's going to play him. But, with him and the chemistry he gets into with Ayo Dosunmu, right? Two Chicago kids. Well, Ayo Dosunmu's Chicago, and Manas Bucelis, because I know a lot of Chicagoans are going to correct and say he's from the Chicago area, not necessarily Chicago. But two kids from Chicago really kind of have the keys to the Chicago Bulls bench. And that is in Manas Bucelis. That's in Ayo Dosunmu. And I'm not even saying that Bucelis is going to get as many minutes as like an Ayo Dosunmu, but what he brings is going to be so needed for how the play style that this Bulls team's playing, that to watch these two guys come off the bench for the Bulls, I think it's going to be a fun thing to do, man. But that's my thought processes on that. You guys also embrace Josh Giddey a little bit more, y'all. Come on, man. What are we doing here? But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullscentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.